I think that at this point in time, it's pretty apparent that aim trainers like AimLab are a great way to improve your aim. I know it, you know it, everyone knows that practicing a skill will help you improve. But one thing that many players, including me, have wondered at some point is, will this actually help me more than just playing the game? What's up, ProGuides fam? It's your boy, Royal G, and today I'm going to attempt to answer this question and explain why aim trainers like AimLab help a lot more than you think. To do this, I'm going to show you guys some in-game examples of how some of the most popular scenarios like Spider Shot, Switch Track, and other related challenges show up in-game, talk about the role of AimLab for improving in Valorant, and explain why AimLab is so helpful for improving as an aimer. So don't forget to one-tap the like and subscribe button, and let's get right into it. So, one of the main things that cause people to hesitate when they use aim trainers is that even though they're technically training aim in some way through different scenarios and challenges, it always feels secondary to playing the game, and it's hard to see the connection between training your aim in AimLab and seeing your aim improve in Valorant. In fact, sometimes it even feels counterproductive because you enter a game of Valorant with the expectation that your aim is better, but end up dying in the same fights and missing the same shots. But as a Radiant player who has played CSGO religiously for years, I can assure you that every scenario has its purpose. Which leads us to our question of the day. Which AimLab scenario is your favorite? I already know most of you guys are going to say grid shot, but let's not imagine that we're tens for 1 second. Personally, I love playing motion shot because it feels so fluid and engaging. Let me know which one you like the most in the comments below. So to get a better picture of how training scenarios show up in game, let's start with a commonly used scenario in AimLab for training, which is Spider Shot. If you don't know how Spider Shot works, you basically have a target at the center of the screen that you shoot, and then the next target will spawn in a random location. Essentially, your goal is just to hit the targets quickly and accurately. Now, some of you guys might be already thinking, this doesn't seem like something I would use in game. After all, it doesn't seem like realistic adjustments. Why does it keep resetting at the center? There's no recoil at all, the targets are too small, whatever it is that makes it feel unnatural. If you've had these thoughts, you have a point. Anything outside of simply playing Valorant will feel off. Yet at the same time, there's a connection between what you practice here that is directly applicable to how we would play Valorant. Take a look at this clip.
In mail, heavy.
I'm rotating.
Should be.
Nice,
That rope
that's
bomb.
Big kill.
Throw one way. That's bad.
Did you guys notice the connection? I basically just played Spider Shot when killing that raise. Here's the aim breakdown. As I swing after ulting, I have a mental picture of where the enemy might be, which guides my crosshair placement. This is basically the center target in Spider Shot. Then, as I swing, I find that the enemy isn't exactly where my crosshair is because I don't have wall hacks, and therefore I have to react by flicking to his head. This is the second target. Basically, the center target is the assumption that you're using some level of reasonable crosshair placement, and the second target is where the enemy actually is. You can see this happen again in this clip as I turn the corner and immediately flick to Astra. And although this isn't the only type of fight you'll take in Valorant, it's a relatively common fight that has many variations. For example, I could be reacting to a flash and flicking back to fight, or maybe I'm forced to make a 180 and adjust, or any number of similar situations. It could even be a scenario where the enemy swings from an angle I'm not expecting, which forces me to adjust. This would be more like motion shot, which is basically Spider Shot but with a moving target instead. Sometimes the enemy is moving when you take the fight, so it's a good idea to practice reading their trajectory too. And speaking of trajectories, let's talk about tracking scenarios and how they show up in your gameplay. This one is less relevant to Valorant as a whole, since fights end in milliseconds, but it actually affects you in more ways than one. I think we already know that tracking is crucial for adjusting your crosshair to your enemies. Scenarios like Switch Track are great representatives for keeping track of multiple moving targets. In game, this could be like a series of swings from enemies where you have to adjust quickly after each kill. But beyond factoring in for the enemy's swing, there's actually a more subtle reason why tracking is useful, and that's actually to counteract your own movement. When you round a corner or swing an angle, your movement affects your aim by adjusting your crosshair in the direction you're moving. So to counteract this, you need to either pre-aim or constantly readjust to maintain your crosshair placement. Training or tracking is actually very hard to do normally, which is why AimLab actually helps a whole lot more. Not only does scenarios like Strafe Track help you practice reacting to movement, you also develop a smoother aim and more controlled aim that indirectly affects your crosshair placement in game. And let's be honest, it helps you with something else as well. Running and gunning. I'm not saying you should run and gun, but hey, if you have a Spectre and they're at close range, you know what to do. And of course, I only scratched the surface of all the different scenarios that you can play. There are tons of other scenarios that can train specific aiming skills, as well as Valorant specific scenarios that simulate certain in-game maps as well. Just yesterday, I was playing the Halloween event map, and it was a pretty fun scenario that also helps you improve. Try to beat my score if you can. I'm feeling pretty confident about this one. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that the idea that aim trainers don't actually help you improve at your main FPS game is completely false, and that AimLab definitely has the tools to help you get better at any game that requires aim and precision. Speaking from personal experience, AimLab is one of the best ways to push the limits of your aim so that no matter the opponent, you're always ready to give them your best shot. Not only are there training playlists created by the pros to test your abilities, AimLab has also partnered with Valorant to develop training programs specifically with us gamers in mind. So if you're aiming for the top, AimLab will be your new best friend. Click the link in the description to get started today. In my opinion, the role of aim trainers is kind of like a gym for athletes. You have tools that can increase your strength in certain aspects, and there's a wide variety of different exercises you can do as well. But just like how curling dumbbells and doing the bench press isn't directly related to playing basketball, it's quite obvious that being stronger is definitely helpful for playing better basketball. There's always exceptions to this, like how Kevin Durant somehow can't even bench 185, and Zaiwu, the CSGO player who famously said that he never death matches and only plays a game, but I think it's safe to say that most people don't operate that way. You can be great at Valorant without aim trainers, just like how you can be great at any traditional sport without conditioning and strength workouts. But it's definitely not the most efficient method, and typically requires a whole lot of playtime, which leads to a pretty important point about AimLab and why it's so important for you as a player. Pushing your limits as a player is a surefire way to improve at rapid speeds, but as you can probably guess, a typical Valorant game doesn't always push your aim to the limit. Some games you might just get less action, or some games you're just playing against worse opponents. Whatever the reason, it's hard to treat the Valorant rank system as an environment where you're constantly pushing the limits of your aim. But that's not the case with aim trainers. Some of you guys might be wondering why throughout this whole video, I didn't mention one of the most popular scenarios of all, which is grid shot. And the reason is partially because grid shot is nothing like any in-game situation you'll ever find yourself in. But what grid shot offers to people who play it is an opportunity to break your limit by testing your speed, precision, and endurance all at the same time. Even though it doesn't represent an in-game scenario, it lets you really push your limits as an aimer and helps you grow. And obviously, this applies to every scenario in AimLab. Since you can set scores playing scenarios and there's nifty analytics to judge your performance, you have actual metrics to determine your weaknesses, how you hold up against other people, and a numerical score that becomes your goal to beat. All of these things make aim training feel fun and rewarding because you're constantly striving to beat your high score or solve your weaknesses. I don't know if you guys relate, but I always want to get better every day. If there's anything I hate, it's stagnating as a player. Personally, one of the most annoying parts of competitive games for me was that since every game turns out slightly differently, it's hard to track whether I improve or not after a day of grinding. And we all know that rank rating is not a great representation of progress since it fluctuates from day to day. When there are better metrics to document your progress as a player, improving becomes clearer and therefore also makes playing the game feel more rewarding. I feel like this point alone makes aim trainers a necessity for any aspiring player trying to reach the top. By now, hopefully I've helped answer the question of whether AimLab or aim trainers as a whole actually improve your aim in Valorant. Although I won't say you only need to use AimLab to succeed in game, I believe it's an integral part of the process of developing strong aim. And with that, let me know what you think about all this and any feedback you have. We're gonna start making more AimLab related content in the future, so stay tuned. It's been Royal G, and good luck on the grind.